Hello everybody, and welcome back to another of my videos around breaking down barriers, inspired and supported, if you like, by this book that I wrote, Breaking Down Barriers, My Journey from a Small African Village to the World Stage. And I take ideas and philosophies and thoughts that I have, share with you some of the ideas, and then within the book itself there is a personal story, my personal story, that links to that philosophy. You have action items, you have critical thinking questions, and you have quotations, which I do love. So let's start out today with one of the chapters in here, which is, to be honest, it is one of my favorite topics. And the topic, or the title in here anyway, is taking risks. Because I know for a lot of people, taking risks is a very scary thing. And yes, it should be. Risks should not be uncalculated, unthought through, cavalier. That's not the kind of thing I'm talking about. But I have to say, I love taking risks. I love taking risks. Why? Because it takes you to a whole different place. A place you never thought you would be. And quite frankly, when you look back and you go, wow, did I make this journey? Did I get this far? Did I do this? Absolutely. And if you can hold that joy, that experience of excitement, elation, it's a bit like you're on the top of the mountain. You took that risk, you climbed that mountain, and you are there. And you go, wow, I'm good. I'm great. I'm amazing. Whatever it is you want to say. Now, if you have friends and family like I have, they'll bring you back down very quickly saying, okay, you did it. Not necessarily alone, that's not the point. You have others that climb that mountain with you. But here's what Muhammad Ali said. I have quotes, like I said, in my book. And Muhammad Ali, the great boxer, said, "He who is not courageous enough to take risks will accomplish nothing in life." He who is not courageous enough to take risks will accomplish nothing in life. So my question to you is, what risks have you taken? Which could be one of the critical thinking questions, where I basically want you to go deeper into yourself and ask that question. What risks have you taken? And when you took those risks, where did you get to? Where are you now? Or where are you on that journey? Because taking risks is one of the most exhilarating, most frightening things that you can do. But again, I'm not talking about crazy risks. To give you an idea, I love fast cars. I love Formula One. I've been to several different tracks. At one time in my life, my crazy life, I thought that I would, before it became more and more circuits around the world, I wanted to actually go to every single circuit of Formula One around the world. I wanted to go there and experience it. And then even crazier, I thought I want to go to every single circuit in a single year. I wasn't earning enough, and I wasn't a millionaire or multimillionaire or billionaire or whatever to be able to say, look, I'll take the year off and I'll go traveling. But that was one of my crazy ambitions and ideas, although I guess the reality is it was never really going to happen. My wife would probably have left me, the kids would never be speaking to me. So that was not a great idea. But that is something that I love, Formula One racing. Within Formula One are very fast cars, obviously. And I have been a fan of BMW, and I've had various BMWs over the years. And one of my, which I refer to in the book because I had a vision, it was on my vision board, that I wanted to own the BMW M5, which I did in the end. I had one of the first BMW M5s, phenomenal car. The kids loved it. Flat out on the motorway, take it to Germany, hit the top notch, 250 kilometers an hour. Yeah, crazy stuff. But I loved the M5. I love fast cars. And so when BMW, being one of their more privileged, if you like, clients, and I bought other M5s over the years, they invited me to go to Magny-Cours here in France, which is a Formula One racing track. Not used anymore, different reasons. But it was an event, client event that they were doing down there. So I took my M5, drove down. Obviously, I wasn't insured to use my own car on the circuit, besides which they provided cars. We had the M3, we had the M5, and depending on what they were showing us, we could drive those. Now, coming back to this idea of risk, I got down there, my first BMW event of that nature. I've been to other ones. And there are what we call in the industry, I guess, or in that circuit, what you call petrol heads. So people who are just crazy about cars. And there were some really crazy people. And so you were paired up with individuals to go around the circuit in fact, the M3, I think it was they were using. They were the odd M5s, but the M3. And obviously cars developed for that circuit. And I have to tell you, I was paired up with a couple of guys who were just absolute crazies. They were just nutcases. These are guys who, your instructor showed you how to go around the circuit and you're going flat out with everything you can. And, I thought to myself, that's one of those moments where the guy sitting next to me when I'm driving goes, "You're not going fast enough. Go faster, put your foot down. You're coming up to a curve, go into the curve, drive it, and then come out through the other side." And you know what? That's where this idea of risk, and I talk about calculated risk, that was where I went as fast and as well as I wanted to, and I drove pretty well. But I was not going to risk my life, my wife, my 4 children, my parents, my brothers, whatever, my sister. There was no way that I was going to be as crazy as these guys on a circuit. Yes, I love it. Yes, I like going fast. Yes, I can drive fast. But I'm not to the point where several of these guys were bachelors. Whether you're a bachelor or not, you've got parents, you've got girlfriend, wife, whatever. You've got to be careful about the risks that you take. For me, it did not diminish my pleasure, but I was not prepared to go to that level of risk. So that's not the kind of risk I'm talking about. The kind of risk I'm talking about is, if we bring it back to our level, let's say, your day-to-day world that you live in. Are you thinking of, wanting to, or desperate for changing jobs? But you love the security of where you are. Your salary's coming in, week out, month in, month out. You're getting your bonuses, hopefully. You're getting your weekends off, your time off. Here in France, we have lots of different benefits, from days off to additional hours to when you go back to school, for example, they give you maybe half a day or a day officially to take your kids to school. I never knew of that until we arrived here. But yeah, there are things that they do to really help and support. So it's really comfortable. And if you're really comfortable, the question then is, are you happy? Are you happy where you are? If you're not happy, then why are you still there? But then your mind goes, well, if I left, I'm going to lose all this. Whether you're changing jobs to another company or you're changing jobs completely and deciding to set up your own business. You realize that during the pandemic, during COVID, you were great at embroidery. You were great at skipping, like my daughter is, and she learned to skip and she teaches others to skip, and she's very, very good at it. She's not doing it full time, don't get me wrong, but that passion, that idea. Some people making cakes and realizing, putting it on internet and showing how amazing there's lots of things that people have taken from a small room in their apartment or home and developed into another business. But it hasn't come without the risks, because the salary is no longer there. Your weekends are no longer weekends. Trust me, when you have your own business, unless you achieve a point where you decide to ring fence things, which I've learned to do, and it's a whole different thing, you will be absorbed in creating this new business. So on the one hand, very simply, you don't like your job. Are you going to change it? If you are, that's a risk. You're starting somewhere new. You don't know what it's going to be about. You don't know the people you're going to connect with. Different aspects come into your mind. Is it learning a new skill? You want to learn a new skill, but you want to learn language, for example. And we all know how tough learning a language is if you're not living in that country. So then the next stage is, okay, I want to learn French or German or Russian or Korean or whatever it happens to be. Why don't you move there? Move your family, move yourself, move whatever. Those are choices and decisions that you make. You own them. Yes, there's a risk. There's a risk. When we moved from the UK to France, which again I refer to in the book, so a lot of these stories are in the book, I refer to the fact that our company, or my company, had never, ever worked abroad. And we were in a joint venture relationship with 2 other countries, so UK, French, and Swedish. And I was working on a project. Now, first of all, everybody else was going out on bachelor status. I said, no way, I'm not going on bachelor status. It's my wife, my daughter, and me, or you don't take me at all. I won my arm wrestle with my company, and we went out there because obviously we were funded, financed, we were expatriates at that stage, which was great. But we landed in France in a new environment that the company did not know about. They'd never sent anybody abroad before. It was an absolute, I wouldn't say disaster because we came through it, but it was complex. HR couldn't help us. How do you set up a bank account? How do you find an apartment to live in? You don't speak the language. I did speak some French. I lived in Switzerland, so I could speak, but it needed to be brushed up to get to a level of full and easy communication. Where do you go to get things? How do you settle in? My wife and my 9-month-old daughter at the time, she didn't have a job. She wasn't working on anything that she could be involved in. She's a midwife. That's a risk. That's a big risk. But a risk that we took because, quite frankly, it helped us grow phenomenally as individuals, as a family, move to other countries as well. That's another risk. Are you prepared to take that risk? If you are, it's all out there, but there will be challenges along the way, absolutely. But I love the idea of taking risks because you push yourself to the next limit. And once you're through that, you discover you can actually go further. You discover that you actually have more in reserve. And each step that you take is a building block for your future. So when a risk comes up, you no longer look at it as a risk, but as an opportunity. And if that opportunity doesn't work out the way you want, that's okay. You will not be any less knowledgeable and skilled as when you started from here. There's a saying, a quote which you may have heard, which is that ships are safe in harbor, but that is not what ships are built for. Ships are safe in harbor, but that is not what ships are built for. Ships are built to go out into sea. They're built to sustain the ocean beating against the bows constantly. But they're also built for beautiful sunny weather when you're on those calm waters, which you'll get. You always have choppy seas. So what I want you to reflect upon is, what are you going to do when an opportunity comes up? And how are you going to assess it? Or are you going to say, too risky. Too risky, I don't want to do it. But what is that risk based on? How have you assessed it? How have you analyzed that risk against the opportunity? And I would invite you to consider that if the opportunity, in terms of rewards, is much higher than the risks, then you have to go with the opportunity. That is where the reward is. That is where you will grow from here to this, to whatever it is that you want to achieve. You would have learned that new language if you moved to another country. You'd have learned that new skill if you decided that you were going to take your homegrown business to become a global business, or even just to be a community business within your street, within your city, within your country. Who knows? The ideas are limitless. But if you don't take risks, you will not grow. You will not grow as a person, and your business or your idea will not grow. And what could be worse than looking back and saying, I wish I'd done that. I wish I'd gone that direction. I wish I'd taken this risk. I want you to think about that. Let me just see, because there's, like I say, there are critical thinking questions that I ask in the book. And in here, here's a question for you. Are you scared? So this is in the chapter. Actually, no, it's not that one. We'll put it, yeah, it's in here. when you are faced with the choice that is a perceived risk, that's the word you should hold. When you are faced with a choice that is a perceived risk, weigh it up against the rewards and then make your decision with the full information at your disposal. So if you are, and my background is in engineering, so I was a very successful civil engineer, so I know how to assess knowledge, insight, information against criteria, the design, the concept, the building, everything else. There are steps, mathematical, arithmetical, structural, everything else. So that's my background. So I know how to look at the information and then make a decision. So that's always been very helpful for me. Are you able to do that as well? Or are you someone who goes more from the gut? Because that also is very strong. You have to learn with your intuition. Okay, I've heard all this information. I see everything. Is this the direction I should go in? Is this a risk that I should take? Because the opportunity outweighs the risk. So whatever analysis system that you have, whether it's formal, well laid out, you need to get to a point where you make a decision. And that decision is yours and yours to own. And bear in mind, and I'll close on this, depending on who you speak to, when you choose to take action around an opportunity, not everyone is going to see it the way you do. So that opportunity they may see as a risk. Who are you listening to? Your intuition, your analysis, your assessment, or just the fact that you want to say, well, there's a French expression which I love, I won't say it in French, but basically, are you going to die from it? And if you're not going to die, then what is holding you back? In other words, it's not a risk to your life in any way, shape, or form. You go to another country, you live there, it doesn't work out. You'll always come back with something, always. A bit more of the Korean language maybe that you would have learnt. Maybe you'd have learnt a bit of French. You'd understand about French wine, about gastronomy, about culture, about who knows. It doesn't work out. You decide to go back to your country. Okay. Did you die in the process? Did you lose your way? No. Now, assuming that, you were able to come back to whatever job or function or role you had, depending on your circumstances, children, no children, your wife works, your husband works, whatever. That's not for me to analyze. What I'm saying is you make a choice, you go away, you execute it, and that's fine. Doesn't quite work out, that's fine. It's not the end of the world. So if you can have a different perspective on how you see these things, honestly, you will get to a point where, like me, I hope, you will find an exhilaration, a desire to take risks, because through risks are rewards and opportunities, and your life will, I hope, never be the same again, but will be even more amazing than it is or they are today. So I hope this has been of value to you. I look forward to coming back and joining with you again. Feel free to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any other videos that are coming through. But in the meantime, I wish you well, and I will say goodbye.